you want to increase your performance, find more consistency, build better momentum, just do better at your day-to-day existence. Today we're going to talk about one of the highly undervalued and underused skills and strategies that you want to be adding to your game plan. I'm Ian Hawkins, and this is Sport is Life. The purpose of sport, as I see it, is to see your vision become a reality. Find your voice, create strong connections, and learn to trust your body. I was discussing with a recent podcast guest around how flow is exhausting. And I wanted to talk about something that I mentioned in that podcast, but we didn't dive into a discussion on it. So there's a fantastic book by Steve Kotler. And if you want to check out his work, highly recommend it. He's done a heap of work on flow states. He even has a flow dojo where he takes people into his center to help them access the flow state. But one of his books that I found hugely beneficial, The Rise of Superman, Decoding the Science of Ultimate Human Performance. And one of the things that Steve Kotler talked about in there was that there are 4 stages of flow. So flow being that state of when you're in the zone where you are making decisions effortlessly. It's almost like things is happening in slow motion. You are seeing moves ahead, but you almost already know what's going to unfold before it happens. It's when you're doing those activities where you can immerse yourself in it for 4 hours. And at the time, it feels like you're racing 100 miles an hour, but time slows down. And suddenly you've lost 4 hours, not in a bad way, but because you've just been so immersed, you've been having so much enjoyment, you're loving it. That's the flow state. Now, what he talks about is these 4 stages of flow. And the first step is having a goal. That's an easy one. Second stage is the struggle stage. And I think that's a really important one to sit with too. It's not something I was necessarily going to talk about today, but how often do you, when you want to get going, you have a goal and you hit that struggle stage and maybe you go, you know what, I'm not going to do this now, and you go and do something else, or you get distracted or whatever it is. And maybe think about at a sporting example where you've been in flow, where you've been in the zone. I can think of a particular innings I played in cricket where I scratched around for, I don't know, the first 30 runs or so, really struggling, but then something just clicked and suddenly just couldn't miss the middle of the bat. And one of the few hundreds that I'd got was, after going through this struggle stage, is suddenly just everything unfolding. So, an awareness around that sometimes in your day-to-day life when you're accessing flow, so flow being that part of what you do well that just is effortless and where you're able to almost see moves ahead, you lose track of time. There might be a struggle stage and the ability to continue to press on when you're in that struggle. The goal's got to be clearly defined. That's an important part. And then once you hit the flow state when things are just, like you would have had examples where you could think of where everything's just unfolding exactly as it's meant to, and you're just having the time of your life. But stage 4 is an important one and often missed one, and that is the rest and recovery and review stage. And he was talking about in human performance, there's been a steady increase in results over time. And only got to look at the running or swimming results, times, speeds. There's been a really steady increase, nothing hugely significant. But when you look at the world of extreme sports, there's been an exponential increase in what people are capable of. From, you use surfing as an example of, they would never have dreamed of surfing like big waves. And then they started playing around with it. They were getting towed into these waves. Then they went for bigger waves. And he was talking about that break off the coast of California, Jaws, where they would get towed into these 100-foot waves, and then to ultimately where they're at now, which is paddling into these waves, which is crazy. And the size of the waves they're surfing. And he even talked about BMX, skateboard, the size of the jumps. The level of increase in performance is astronomical. And the main reason he cited why was because of their ability to access this flow state. They have to do a fair bit of preparation still. It's not like they're cutting corners, but their ability to access that flow state and then also having that recovery time was so important. They instinctively do that when they're following the seasons. If they're the sort of people that are doing one of those seasonal sports where, extreme sports, surfing, although, you could argue that people do that all year round. But things like the winter sports, there's a climbing season, like you talk about face climbing, where they do it without any ropes or anything up these pretty much sheer cliffs. Crazy, but there's people who do it. There's only certain times of the year you can do that. And then they have time away and they just chill out and relax and then get ready for the next season. How often do we actually take time out? Do we take time to rest, to recover, to review how things have gone, and then to reset ourselves for the next goal? Especially day-to-day life, career, elite level sport, they absolutely do. But how often are they actually accessing flow states, and how often are they actually reviewing what unfolded and keeping track of how they accessed it so they can access it again? One of the ways that I've discovered that you can access the flow state is through your unique personality, your unique way of operating. And that actually can contribute to you accessing flow states in other areas like sport, for example. So I remember working with a golfer, it's going about 8 or 9 years ago. And he was the sort of person that was continually, naturally seeing the flaws in other people, what other people were doing. And he was always the sort of person that he didn't want to be that person that was trying to instruct people. Even though he's a very good golfer, scratch golfer, and would have been great help, he didn't want to be one of those people that was like sort of giving unsolicited advice. So what we talked about was, okay, well, you can ask them if you feel comfortable doing that, if they would like some advice. And if they say no, that's fine. But then I was saying, well, but even if they don't ask for advice, you can be imagining what advice you would be giving, how you would deliver it, how you would coach it, how you would teach it to still be able to access that flow state. So for him, that worked really well because it was causing him frustration watching when he was playing with partners that he just wanted to help, because he's also that same sort of person that's a nurturer, loves to help, wants to be someone giving back if he can, particularly in an area that he's obviously quite gifted at. So, this flow state, like I mentioned, accessing his personality, which helped his golf game. But I'll come back to what I was talking about the rest, is like making sure that you've got just strategic and very intentional and deliberate rest time, recovery time, and taking moments to review. So as I record this, I'm about to take a week off, and the first day of that time off, I'll be sitting down with my wife and business partner, where we will sit down and review this quarter, and we'll be resting, of course, and we'll also be resetting for the next quarter. We did it at the start of the year for where we saw the whole year going. You can never know for sure, and things have definitely taken some different turns since the start of the year, which is great. So we need to review those changes and go back to some of those things that we set ourselves at the start of the year, and then properly switch off and then reset to go again, create a new plan to go again. Now, just because you're not in business doesn't mean you're not going to get a heap of success from doing this in whatever your chosen career is. But you can also apply it to your personal life too. And we're regularly doing that. We probably do that more often than we do business, because we just know how important that is. And taking that time just to go, okay, well, let's look at how we've performed in the week just gone, what worked, what didn't. A really big focus for us has been, there's been times where weeks can just fly by really quickly, and we used to get really down on ourselves and go, we haven't really done what we needed to do. it's ultimately we're having a crack at our own performance. But what we've got better at realizing is that when we're not trying to make these huge changes so we're infinitely better than we were the day before, we're looking to make those incremental changes and celebrating when we have made some of those changes, reviewing and recognizing our progress. And that's been really important. So I would challenge you to look at your years this year. Did you set yourself targets? Do you do that monthly, quarterly? Do you pause? Do you celebrate when you've gone well? Do you review? Do you take time to properly rest, to properly switch off? I went out on Sunday afternoon without my phone. It was bliss. And I'll be doing that for big chunks of this week off too, because that's just something that keeps you connected to things that you don't need to be connected with all the time. And so taking that time off to recharge so I can come back ready to go and ready to rip in. So that's the target for you guys, is to make sure you are looking at you're a high performer. So start looking at your life, career, your day-to-day life, personal life, relationships, sport. If you're still playing it, why not? You may as well look to do it as well as you can, even if you're a social or a casual athlete or sports person these days. You still want to do it the best you can. So why not access some of these really easy to implement steps, but with structure, with a bit of strategy, with a bit of intention, to like doing it deliberately. You're going to get more joy out of it. You're going to get more enjoyment, and you're going to find yourself performing better, which is going to make the next time you do it even better. You can feel better about yourself, and there's a certain momentum that builds, consistency that you'll start to find. Yeah, it's well worth the effort. So remember those 4 stages of flow, pushing through the struggle stage if you know you're heading in the right direction, but it just feels tough initially. The flow state's easy once you get there, and making sure you have that rest, recovery, and reset. Now, speaking of, the podcast will take a brief break. So this one will be going out on Friday what are we up to this week? 18th, I think it's the 18th, Friday the 18th, and then there'll be a week off, so that'll coincide with Easter, and then we've got the short week here in Australia where we've got Easter Monday and then Anzac Day on the Friday, so it's a short week for most people, and so yeah, I'm going to take some time off too, and then we'll be back again the week after, ready to rip in. Make sure you take some time off, add the rest in the recovery. Enjoy yourself, be safe, be well, and I'll see you on the other side. You've taken the time to listen to this whole episode. Now it's time to take action. Commit to one thing you've learned today and make it happen. And to avoid any obstructions, join the Sport is Life movement by clicking on the link in the show notes.